Hello and welcome back, my lovely soul sisters. How are you this week? Why is it so hard for us to make peace with ourselves, to have inner peace? Why do so many of us women struggle with self doubt? On today's episode, I'm really going to be exploring self doubt and the loss of an old friend and grief and just sharing this is what's on my heart today. So I love you. I'm so grateful for you. It would mean so much if you could share this with people or a woman that you feel could use this message today. And please head over to iTunes and leave Awaken You with Shelly Bond a 5-star rating and review. It really means the universe to me. Thank you. Welcome to my show. I'm Shelly Bond. One of my many roles is a mama, a healer, a spiritual practitioner, a yogi, a soul sister, and a forever learner and grower on this planet and this thing called life. One of my many dharmas, my life's purpose, is to bring as much love and healing to the world as possible. I've created this space as a connecting point for women to bring us together, to have the hard talks, to share these raw, vulnerable pieces of ourselves, and to know that you are not alone. I'm right here with you walking this path. I love you. I have been feeling super cracked open. Maybe that's the word. I just think of an egg, like a raw egg, just cracked open. I've been feeling so vulnerable. And here we are. It's a week before the American big holiday. It's actually exactly a week. Thanksgiving. That's so crazy. I'm looking out my back window and it's snowing. It's snow for me. I know it can bring a lot of mixed emotions. For me, it's this calm, still peace when I'm inside. Maybe when I'm driving, it's probably a lot different in the driving conditions and my kids. And right now, though, I'm at home by myself. I cleaned my kitchen and my living room. I have all three of my kids at school, the puppies for a nap, the dogs are for a nap, my husband's at work, and I just feel I can do that. Do you want to try that with me? Just bring that breath, bring all that stress and tension into the shoulders, into the neck, breathe it in. Exhale, draw the shoulders away from the ears, let go. 2 more, breathe it in. Notice where you're holding, let go. 1 more, you've got this with me, breathe it in. Let it go. Breathing through those cobwebs of the boogery noses and all the things. And really want you to notice when you actually take time to breathe and bring awareness to your breath, the change that it makes. Sometimes for me, 3 breaths can be that magical number, and sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes I need 10 breaths. Sometimes I need 2 minutes of breath practice. Sometimes I need to delve into affirmations, or I've been listening to a lot of healing frequencies, lady, that can help bring me closer to that state of inner peace. I know this time of year, I feel like with families and gatherings, it can be this time we look forward to. It can be exciting. And also, it is this time of when we get around our families, innately we all fall into the roles that we resumed as children. And it can bring up a lot of pain, a lot of frustration, a lot of anger or jealousy or resentment or shame or guilt or whatever low vibrational emotion that has been trapped in our childhood, it can bring up. So here, just allow yourself to acknowledging whatever it is that arises when you greet your family. And I know for so many years, like I've always looked forward to the holidays, and Thanksgiving is like one of my favorite holidays because I love that the expectations are so much lower than Christmas. I love Christmas and the sparkly and the music and the cozy fires, but there's a lot more expectations with the presents and the stress of getting everyone to places on time and going to the parties and the blah, 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 blah. It's a lot. It can be a lot. And this time that's supposed to be this magical, joyful time of year, I know for many years has created a lot of anxiety with me, within myself, and finding inner peace has been really a challenge. And so I've really been bringing my awareness to these last, I'm thinking of this picture of me when I was deep in the hair industry wearing like black eyeshadow, black eyeliner, huge puffy hair that sat like 3 inches above my head, huge push-up bra, the perfect put together seemingly outfit. And I had no kids back then. It's this picture of my one oldest sister sitting in my lap, and she looks like a little child compared to me. We're bigger. We have different birth fathers. And I think of that woman, and I can remember every morning or day before holidays, and just this massive dump of anxiety that I would experience before holidays, or even like last night, Jack had this music performance, his first little cutest music performance at their school. And it was so precious. And they were singing, and they got to play instruments, and they got to do folk dancing together. But just that, like, getting everyone ready and out the door. And I noticed that anxiety plagued me last night. And then I was like, no, thank you, Shelly. I took some deep breaths. And I looked at the clock and said, we will get there on time. And I made sure we made our dinner on time. I had everyone ready. And Jack, I was noticing that he was experiencing a lot of anxiety, like, I'm going to be late. Like his expectations of that. And we were early. We were early. We were on time. We were beyond on time. And so I'm noticing that pattern. And I'm really acknowledging that within myself, because it has been a really big struggle. And then my husband, it affects him too, because when I'm being all like, we have to get everything ready. We have to get the food. We have to get the kids. We have to get the dogs, and we have to get packed in the car. And it's like, no, I am going to choose the state that I show up this holiday season, this Thanksgiving, this time of gratitude, because I'm not just being one of those people who just say, be grateful one time a year. I really do. I have a gratitude practice that and I really hope that by now, if you're listening to I think we're literally, my friends, my soul sisters, it gives me goosebumps. This might be episode 40 or 39, which means I did the math. I've been podcasting with Awaken You with Shelly Bond for 10 months. And I have to acknowledge that, because often I don't acknowledge myself. And this is where this topic of self-doubt comes in. And I've been experiencing a lot myself. I've been seeing it in my soul sisters and members in my Hive community. I've been noticing a lot, and it can be so hard. And that's like another one of those things that it's an affirmation that I say a lot. It's hard. Is it hard because I say it's hard, or is it hard because it's really freaking hard? This self-doubt, especially this time of year, is like, it's hitting me hard. It's like coming in, because I've been on this journey of like launching an online platform, and then my inner critic is like, who are you to do that? You don't have that. Like, you don't know what you're doing. And in those moments, I let it take me down, and then I'm stuck. I get stuck, and I procrastinate, and I just put things off, and I just stop. And I notice that that's one of my self-destructive cycles that I will do, or I'll self-sabotage myself. And then I have to really bring my awareness to what I'm thinking about myself and what I'm feeling about myself. And of course, this was like beautiful. I bought this book called, I think it's called The Power of One More. Yes, it's called The Power of One More by Ed Milet. And I actually bought it I literally pre-bought the book. I pre-ordered it before he launched it. Ed Milet is like a really awesome entrepreneur. He's a very successful in the self-help field. He is kind of a little on the religious side, but it's beautiful because he's really into his faith, and I acknowledge and I honor that. And there's so many similarities between faith and whatever, religion and faith and spirituality. And you can just, for me, I just come to this place where I'm just open to just seeing that all of faith and spirituality and religion is just, it's leading to love. It's leading to a better life, a better self. So I can connect with that. Like there's, in any book and anything that you read or person, even with me, like there might be things you resonate with and others that you don't, but really just allow to come through what you need to come through. And so for me, when I'm experiencing a lot of self-doubt, I really need to reach for help. And I know it's hard. It's really hard to reach for help for me. It's always been, because being vulnerable is something that is hard for me. And as a woman, like a lot of us, like we are vulnerable instinctually and naturally, but on the outer exterior as a mom and a woman and a wife, I want to be a freaking strong, badass Viking warrior. And when I allow myself to feel this cracked open, this vulnerability, it's really hard. And then my self doubt is like, oh, you are a weak woman. You do not have what it takes. And so for me, I know that I have to reach for help. And for me, reading is really helpful because it just is. It's like a way to escape from what I'm experiencing and go somewhere else. And I'm really mindful of what I choose to read. And it was interesting because so my kids have been reading, like Milo has been reading 2 hours a week, and it's for his homework, and he's getting better and better. And Jack reads every night, and Junie reads every night. And I usually do a book club with a soul sister, but we couldn't find a book that we both vibed with. And I haven't read a book in like 3 weeks. And that's just really weird for me and just off. And I could tell, I'm like, I need something. And so Milo was like, Mama, what do you read? Like last night we were laying in his bed, and I said, well, I love reading books with you guys. I love children's picture books and middle grade fictions. I love that with my kids, but I steer towards the nonfiction and self-help and spiritual books. Like that's where I'm at in my life. And I'm not saying like a good fiction. I've definitely read Harry Potter, and back in the day before I was on my self-help journey, I read all of the Twilight books, and I was like indulging in them. And for me, though, these books have just been this gateway and these reflections of myself. And so I've had this book sitting on my night table, The Power of One More by Ed Milet. And it's been there for months, and it's been just sitting there. And I actually was listening to the Yoga Girl podcast with Rachel Brathian. If you haven't listened, I love her podcast. She's a lovely light. And she was talking about like nighttime and how she gets sucked into her phone and to TV, and she knows that she needs to be reading more. And that like hit me. And Rex and I have been watching The Last Kingdom with Uhtred Ragnarsson, which is now Uhtred, son of Uhtred. If you've watched the show, it's very good. It's on Netflix. But I have noticed myself that so what we go to sleep with is the first thing we think about. So I'm like thinking about these Vikings and Uhtred and all the things. I'm like, Shelly, stop it. Like you need to pause. Like I'm noticing, like I do love that escape at night. I love escaping to the shows, but last night it was like 9:15. I'm like, you need to, like, a new show just started, and I started watching it, and then Rex started dozing off. I'm like, turn off the TV and go get your butt in bed and go pick up a book. It was just a reminder, like, you haven't read a book in 3 weeks. Like, you need this. Like, you are experiencing a lot of self-doubt. This is my inner monologue. Like, you need something. And then I turned on my Himalayan lamp, my salt lamp, and I did my teeth brushing and washed my face. And I like to sleep naked. I have these like bamboo cotton sheets, which they're freaking freezing this time of year, but I have like 2 warm, cozy blankets, and I get my pillows all set up, and my Himalayan salt lamp is on. And I look over, and there's my book, The Power of One More. And Milo's little voice is like, Mama, what are you reading? I'm like, I'm asking my kids to read, and I'm being a hypocrite, and I'm not reading. I'm like, I'm going to read before bed. So I grabbed the book, The Power of One More, that it's probably been like 3 months since I touched this book, and I open it, and immediately I'm like, I'm going to skip the intro. I already read that. And then I just opened, and I just trusted that I was on the right page. And it was wonderful because the message, when I read it the first time, it was not resonating. And he was talking about our internal thermostat, which is like, for me, like our self-worth, what we put our worth at. And that really resonated because it's been really cold. And he was saying that a lot of us, we set our internal thermostat at 75 degrees or 65 degrees. And we're wondering why we can't get 100-degree reading, and like why we're not successful, why we haven't met these markers, or why our life is where it is. And it's because of our worth, our value that we have actually programmed inside of us, deep inside of us, deep inside of the subconscious mind. And we have all of these beliefs that support that. And we're so set at like this 70, like it really resonated. I'm like, I'm set at like 70, and I want this 111-degree thermostat reading. I want to be here, but I have this like these self-doubts that keep coming back. And that really resonated with me really, really, really intently last night. And when I read it 3 months ago, it didn't resonate. It was like, that's kind of, that doesn't matter. But now it just settled in. And I really believe it's like when the student is ready, the teacher emerges, and that teacher emerged in that book. And then this other part, which I know this, he was talking about like, who are we spending our time with? Are we spending our time with 50-degree people who are really low vibrational? Are we having conversations? Are we judging people? Like, who are the people that we are surrounding ourselves with? Or are we surrounding ourselves with 80, 90, 100-degree people who are like positive and uplifting? Like, that's why you're here. We're listening to this podcast because we want to get inspired. We want to be better. We want to do better. We want to connect. We want to heal and expand ourselves in ways that we never knew were possible. And it's so true. And even if that comes in the form of a podcast, in the form of a book, and it's like we can't cut every single person out of our life, but sometimes like our immediate family or our extended family, you know what? Like, you maybe resonate or maybe don't, but your soul made a contract and picked those people for a reason. Maybe your grandparents or aunts or uncles, people that are like toxic to you now because you had to experience that. I know me for a fact that is so true. Like, that rings like 200% true for me. Like, I know that my parents were my parents for a reason. I know I had to endure all the struggles. And I know part of my dharma, my life's purpose, is I have to break some of these karmic loops and these bonds and these toxic relationships. I have to be the one to set free. I have to speak from my Vishuddha Chakra, my throat chakra, from my heart, even when it's hard. And that, right, we might not pick our family, but we get to pick it now. We get to pick the family members that we spend time with. We get to pick the friends, the extended family. Like, we get to choose that. And making boundaries with family is a super huge challenge. And it's taken me my whole freaking life. Like, I'm 39. I'm like creeping up on 40, which is crazy and amazing at the same time that I'm already here. Like, wow, I never thought I would be almost 40 and saying that out loud, but I am. And I'm showing up for it all. And a lot of that self-doubt, it can come from those toxic relationships. And I remember back in the day, I used to have this friend who was like this older woman who was like a kind of like a mother figure, but she was really toxic and really negative. But at the time, I was really toxic. I was really negative. I was really judgmental. And our energies, it was like attract like. And it was like years later when I started my journey with self-help and personal growth, where I finally noticed, I think we were on this one conversation, and I noticed, oh my gosh, all of our conversations are really negative. They're not positive. They're not uplifting. I feel worse off after I talked to this person. And I had to I stopped answering her calls. I stopped calling her. And then I did her hair at the time. And one time, it was like months later, she came in crying in the salon. It was like, I was like embarrassed, like, what is this woman doing? Like, oh my God. And she was like, you don't like me anymore. You don't call me. You don't answer my calls. And I just was honest. And I said, you know what? I'm really busy with my kids, and I don't really have the extra time. And she was like, you always have the time. And I could just feel her victim mentality and her victim energy. And I was like, no, thank you. And I had to have that hard conversation with her. And I eventually just stopped doing her hair. And I had to like cut that tie. I had to divorce her, or I had to break up with her, or whatever you call it. And it was hard in the moment. And then I remember how liberating it was. It was like, oh, whoa, I get to choose the relationships. And even if it's like a newer relationship or an old one, like one of my closest family members, that I get to choose those people. And it comes from me, and it comes from my ability to find strength within myself, to speak my truth, even when it's hard, to be authentically honest with someone. And don't let this detour you from like the ego part of ourself that wants to be right and make everyone else wrong and blame other people and victimize ourselves, because those are two different things. And I know, because I've like walked both edges of that rope, of that. I've climbed both edges of that ladder, that we have to find in our space, and we have to create what it is that we want in our life. And again, with these holidays coming up and these triggers, these emotional responses, like anxiety, overwhelm, it's like, well, How can we choose to find inner peace? How can we choose to show up the way that we want to show up? It starts first within ourselves. And so, right, all of this self doubt, it's here. It's already here. It's piled up. Maybe it's a freaking mountain. Maybe it's a volcano exploding. Maybe it's just like emanating from your aura, the self doubt. But what are we going to do now? Right? So we know we've got this self doubt. We're experiencing this self doubt. We're probably seeing it in our sisters, maybe in our parents. We're seeing it in our soul sisters, people that we love so much that we're like, oh my gosh, it causes so much pain. That's when we can reach for, right, love and compassion, because it's easier for us to help everyone else, isn't it? Right? Especially as a woman and a mom. It's so much easier to help other people. Be like, oh my gosh, I see your problems. Like, let me help you. You can get through this. I know this is a hard time. I know you can get through this. You have strength. You are not alone. That's when we can have those conversations with ourselves. Like, it's so important and something that we're not taught. Like, I think about this so much. My kids are in school, like at this like elementary age, like ticking over Junies in middle school, and Milo is. I'm like, they've never once brought any awareness to your thoughts, to your self-worth, to your confidence, to your internal thermostat. That these are all things I had to learn when I became, I think I was like 32 when I first started. Like, what? You can choose your thoughts. So these are things as freaking parents, as mothers, that we start teaching ourselves and we start teaching our kids. And it starts small and it can sound big at first, but it starts with a gratitude practice, right? Right. With this time of Thanksgiving coming up, everyone's like, it's starting to, it becomes a little bit cliche this time of year. Like, what are you grateful for? But one of my favorite things about Thanksgiving is that my huge family with me. So Thanksgiving it's like this holiday of my sisters and our families. And it's lovely. And we all sit around the huge table, or usually the kids are at the kids' table and then the adults are around, and we all say what we're thankful for. And every year, it just is like, oh, just touches my heart so deeply. And that's something that we can bring into our everyday life. That's something that when we can choose to shift from like those low vibrations of feeling like I'm not worthy, I don't deserve this, to gratitude. Like, I'm freaking grateful that I've experienced this pain. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for last year, for last month, for 10 years ago, for my pain that has brought me freaking here. And it's so interesting that we do, like, why do we, especially as women, that we try to help everyone but ourselves? Like, even me, I'm like, girl, I have all of the self-help tools. Like, I know what to do. But when it's like deep in those trenchy moments, no. Like, I'll take time and I do my morning practice. And I have this week, I'm like, Shelly, you are getting your butt out of bed at 6:01 because my kids, well, Jack usually wakes up about 15 to 30 minutes later than me. But just having that time to center and ground my energy. I flip on my fireplace. I have my Christmas tree now. I roll out my yoga mat. I have my 32 ounces of water and I'm sitting there. And this morning I actually did like a lovely silent 15-minute meditation. And I just really brought up gratitude and what I was grateful for. And I was bringing awareness to the self-doubt this morning. I was really just like feeling where the pain was, feeling where I noticed the tension, the tightness kind of in my upper chest and the front of my body, the front of my throat, kind of down near the solar plexus, and then even radiating down into my calves. And I was just like sending so much love and healing. And then I was inviting positive words like, Shelly, you are strong enough. You are beautiful enough. You are wise enough. You have all of the tools that you need. You already are. You already are that woman. You already are. You're already her. You don't have to keep pining and running after and trying to do, be more. You already fucking are her, Shelly. It brings tears to my eyes because I just told that to myself. Like, I needed to tell myself that, but I knew that I needed to hear that, but I didn't say it until now, until I had that awareness. And when we can take time, and so I know when my kids were little, like, I needed every extra ounce of sleep that I could squelch out because my son Jack woke up like 3 to 6 times a night until he was freaking 4. years old. Like, I think I went, no joke, like 8 to 9 years without sleeping through the night. And it just was. And now I mostly can. Jack still sometimes wakes up in the middle of the night and he just comes in and snuggles me in bed at like 2 or 3, but he's been sleeping in his room, and it's been so amazing. And I'm so grateful for a full night's sleep. Or even sometimes I'll wake myself up and have to pee, but it is amazing. And it's like those moments where it's like those peaceful nights sleep that I can just notice and acknowledge. And it's like, that's where inner peace comes from. Inner peace comes from in here. We have to stop looking out there. And it's these phones. It's so frustrating. And I want to do a whole podcast about our phones and social media and how it is destroying our inner peace, that it is negating our inner peace when we reach for those likes. And I know I get caught up in Amazon and like, ooh, it's so easy to just, oh yeah, oh, I need that. Or, you're even in the middle of a meditation practice, we need hand soap. And then you're like, okay, stop, come back. And the only way that we can find this inner peace, that we can explore it, is to sit with ourselves, to sit with all that is this yucky mess that is us. And sometimes we feel like there's days where we have it all together and we're like, I can tackle anything. Yesterday, I had such a horrible day of self-doubt, and my daughter was home, and I just felt yucky all day. I felt like this heavy cloud hanging over me. And then I was like, you know what? Even though I'm experiencing this, I've been wanting to make myself a mala, but just haven't because, make things for everyone else. I actually took the time and I made my mala, and I made myself show up for my yoga teacher training because I'm running out of time, because I've been procrastinating it, thinking like, dreading having that self-doubt, like, oh my gosh, every time I know I have this big final, I do this weird procrastination thing that I see. I'm like, Shelly, you can do this. I've passed every single one. I've had 3 modules, and I passed every single one of them every time. I always do my best and I always try my hardest, but it's interesting how self-doubt's like, you can't do that. And now I'm coming upon like the final, where I have to write things, and hello, I can write things. I love writing things. Sometimes I talk myself out of like, oh my gosh, you can't, but I can. I can. And that's the thing, is when we can first notice this self-doubt and allow ourselves permission to have those days, but then also reach out. So find a book, find a podcast, find some music that's soothing and calming, put on some energies, a mala, grab a crystal, hold it in your hand, maybe make yourself take a shower. I know when I'm having those really crappy days and I actually take a shower and I wash my hair, and then I brush my hair and I actually put on some makeup and put on an outfit that I feel good in, and I look in the mirror and I acknowledge myself and I brush my teeth, and it's like, you can feel better because water is naturally cleansing too. So it's going to help kind of wipe away that yucky, mucky energy. And right, it's like that self-doubt, it can just pile on. And as I'm staring out the window, it's like this sense of peace with the snow. But as I see this sense of peace, it's like as it keeps snowing and it's kind of soft, it's really soft and gentle, and it's laying down on the earth, but it's piling up. And that's what self-doubt does to us, is it piles up and it piles up and it piles up. And it's just like that metaphor of sweeping things under the rug. You can only sweep things under the rug for so long before you just like run into a mountain in front of her. You're going to trip over it. And so we have to start battling our, so to speak, inner demons. We have to start bringing that light to the darkness by doing things. We have to take action though, because we can have the thoughts all day long that I want inner peace, or I want to shift from this self-doubt and I want to build my confidence. I want to know that I am a woman who has value and freaking worth, that I can do anything that I put my freaking mind to. But in those moments when self-doubt is heavy and hard, that we have to rise above. We have to do something different, because we'll never get what we never got. This quote keeps escaping me. It's like we have to do something we've never done to get something we've never got before. And if we're experiencing that self-doubt every day and it's plaguing us, then we need to shift. We need to come up with a new game plan, or we need to outsource and resource people that can help us. We need to maybe get our butts up and take a yoga class. We need to maybe hop on that exercise bike or go take a walk outside. We need to move our bodies, because movement is a way to shift the way we are feeling and thinking, and literally shifting the inner there's this inner chemistry that shoots out, like dopamine and serotonin and all of these different, not dopamine. Dopamine comes from our phones. I meant like oxytocin, like just all of these really good feeling hormones that are actually stimulated when you move your body, and you have to move and you have to do something, because I know how self-doubt can make us feel like that depression, that like, I don't want to do anything. I want to stay in my pajamas. I don't want to brush my hair. I don't want to. And even if you have kids, like I get that. Like I have been stuck in some hardcore postpartum depression and anxiety for lots of years, for fucking lots of years. And it happened for so long that I finally got to this breaking point that I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this. I can't be staring out the window blankly thinking, is this as good as it gets? Because yes, this is as good as it freaking gets. Because it's beautiful and it's life, and we have to show up for it. And there's so much grief. I recently had an old friend just on Friday, 43. I think she was 43 to 45 years old. She was an old friend who just died. She was going to a wedding. She took an airplane with her husband and gets off the airplane and is walking to the baggage and just had a heart attack. She just had a heart attack. And on the way to the hospital, she died. She died. And that was just it. That was it for her. She didn't know that that was going to be her last day. And now her husband is a widower. And then this grief. And it's interesting because I was old, like party friends with her. I worked with her in a restaurant. She was a fellow ginger. She had this really strong personality, just always like knew what she wanted. And she was a really heavy smoker and a drinker. And I used to be too. And I decided when I moved up here to Estes that I wasn't going to be around the same crowd, because again, I was choosing to make these healthy boundaries in my relationships. And I was thinking, I want to choose the energy that I'm around. And now that she's not here, I have this like profound sadness. And it's not that I felt like I was better than her. I was just living a different life than her. I had kids. She didn't. She worked, just lived a different lifestyle. But still, I'm experiencing this profound sadness, just like deep at the center of my being. And this just like loss of this woman who was so young. This woman who had so much light, who also had such a kind heart. I had one of my other soul sisters saying that on Facebook, that she had a friend who her house had caught fire and she had like 3 children and they needed everything. And this woman who passed away just reached out and said, can I send them sheets? Can I help? Like she was like willing to help. And I remember she actually came to this fellow ginger woman, beautiful. She came to my baby shower and was like so excited that I was pregnant and with Junie, which is like crazy, almost 13 years ago. Loss and grief, it's even if it's not like a direct person that you spent every day with, somebody that maybe from your past that helped build you into the person that you are today, somebody who maybe supported you back in the day. She planned my wedding. She planned my wedding. And it is just sad. And it's sad, and I know that our spirits live on, and I know that death is not the end. I know that it's like death, life, death, rebirth, and life. I know there's a cycle, but still there's this human sadness. And I know this time of year can bring up a lot of that, a lot of loss of people that we've loved who are no longer here. But we have to allow ourselves to feel the sadness, to open our hearts, to feel the loss of their life, because there's a reason why we have all of these human feelings and these human emotions. And grief is just, it's one of those things. I remember I have this beautiful friend who lost her husband, and she's 70. She's Sage. I named her on this show. She's my beautiful friend who taught me dowsing and who has the labyrinth. And she lost her mom and her husband of like 40 years after, it was like 1 or 2 years. And I was with her, and it was maybe like a couple months after her husband John had passed, and she just started sobbing, and just you could just feel her vulnerability, and you could feel her profound sadness. And she just let it come up, and we just held space for her, and her daughter was there, and her son-in-law, and my husband and kids, and we were at her house. And then she released it. She let it come up. And she was saying that, she said, grief, it's like this emotional diarrhea. It just comes up and it just goes, and you can't control it. You can't even push it down, even if you tried. And she was saying how I'm good 90% of the time, but it's that 10% where it just comes up, and I have to just allow it to come up. And so when we're experiencing grief and loss, we really have to honor and acknowledge. And it is this profound loss of this person that we have loved so dearly, or even somebody who's impacted us, or even when we see someone that maybe we didn't even know, but we loved what they did in the world. Like Louise Hay, I remember I started reading her books and listening to her meditations and doing her work with mirror work and all of these things. And then I found out that she died, and I bawled. It was this like, oh my gosh, she brought so much light and so much beauty and so much healing into the world. And it was so sad. I was so sad, and I didn't even know her. And then I could just feel this love, right? And so that's what we need to remember, is that even when people pass and we lose their physical form, that their spirit, it continues on. Whatever your belief is if they go to the universe and they return in a new life, or if they go to their heaven or Valhalla. I've been watching a lot of the Viking show, that there is peace, that there can be a peace of this physical self. And we have to allow ourselves to find that space as well, to know that they're at their peace, and that we have to make peace within ourselves, because resistance when it comes to death and mortality is just creating this huge wall. And we have to just trust that the universe or God or whatever our belief system is that it just is. It's that invisible faith, that trusting that life is working on its own timing, and that everyone has their own specific purposes. And for me, it's just a reminder to honor and acknowledge those that you love, to voice it, to say it, and to not waste today. Don't waste tomorrow, and be around the people that you love. Tell them, hug them, kiss them, write them letters, write them an email, send them a text message, freaking FaceTime them, make a date where you go and have lunch with this person that you love so much. Connect. And also, don't waste another day on spending time with people who don't fill you up, for people that you feel worse around. That it matters. And just because you're making those healthy boundaries, you can send them love. It doesn't mean that you think you're better than them, or that their life hasn't mattered in your life. You send them love, and you be on your path. And it's an authentic path. And it is what it is. And life is so unexpected, because it just is. How do we know we could wake up today and this could be the last day? And I know it could be, some people say morbid or somber, but really it's like the Buddha says, it's like live every day like it's your last day. If this was your last day on this planet, who would you see? If it was snowing, instead of hibernating inside, would you go outside? Would you feel those gentle, cold, wet snowflakes melting on your nose? Would you open your tongue? Would you feel what it feels like to be cold? Would you feel like what it feels like to feel love and comfort? It's such this awakening. It's such this eye opener to really embrace our lives, and to know that we can truly choose to fall right in that self-doubt and that judgment, or we can awaken to different aspects of life. It's like that catch 22 where it's such like this polar opposite. It's like self-doubt and then grief. And those are two really challenging emotions to feel and to experience as a human. But we have to trust that the universe has made no mistakes, that the universe has created all of these emotions, even these low vibration ones, for a reason. Like, we were meant as these humans to feel and experience this human experience, and that is including pain and suffering and loss. Because if you didn't feel the sadness that you felt about someone that you have loved and lost, then it wouldn't be real. That's what makes it real. And sometimes even that loss can be from a relationship too. It could be from someone that you loved and maybe you trusted, and perhaps they betrayed you. Perhaps your relationship shifted and they changed. And it could even be like a heartbreak or a divorce or a big break. Maybe I've even heard of people losing custody of their children. Like, there's great grief with people still who live. There can even be great grief with family members that are still here, that we've had to create that healthy boundary from these toxic relationships. And just because we created these boundaries, it doesn't mean that there isn't that loss and that underlying grief, because there still is. And we have to allow that. And we must forgive ourselves, and we must forgive them. Because when we hold on to these grudges, when we hold this guilt or this shame or this jealousy or whatever it is, that it's hurting us. And we have to realize that. And that when we can come from this space of love and forgiveness, it softens. The grief softens. And grief is like, there's all of these stages to grief, right? It can be that profound, deep sadness, that loss, that hysteria, that anger, that frustration. Like, I'm freaking mad that you left me. I can imagine how my lovely friend Kim, who passed away, how her husband is feeling. I could imagine feeling that, like, anger and frustration if I were him. Like, you freaking left me here? Like, no, you don't just get to leave. Come back. That frustration. Or maybe even that guilt of like, oh my gosh, what if I knew? What could I have done? Those what ifs, those get us into a lot of trouble. Those what ifs, the biggest, best thing that we can do when we're experiencing this grief, this loss of whether it's a loved one here, a loved one who has passed, or even an experience that's out of our hand. Like, we can grieve mistakes other people make that are detrimental to their life. That we can grieve the loss, and we must be with it, and we can't live in that fear of the unknown, that fear of, oh my gosh, what if this happened? What if this happened? Oh my gosh, this is going to happen. We can't plug in all of those things. The only thing we can do is keep present with it. Keep present, feel into your heart. How is that grief feeling? Feel what that pain feels like. And I remember many years ago, I had a friend, and her husband played hockey with my husband. And he was like riding his motorcycle to some motorcycle show with a group of friends. And he was literally like 2 minutes from his house, and he hit a patch of rocks, and he was going like insane, like 75 to 100, they estimated. And he wrapped himself around a power line, and he died days later, and he had 2 boys. And I remember the woman, she was so sad and was experiencing so much grief, and someone talked her into putting her on like pain. It wasn't pain medication. Maybe it was like an antidepressant. And she went from being like, I saw her and allowing her to feel her sadness and her grief. And then at the funeral, she was so drugged out of her mind that she wasn't even allowing herself to feel grief. It was like she was not even there. And to me, that was even sadder. It was even sadder that this medication was numbing her pain, and she wasn't even allowed to feel anything. I think she did. She cried a lot, but it was like looking through her instead of seeing her. And that to me, it was like, oh, so sad. And if we lose someone dear to us and near to us, if it's our spouse or a parent or a freaking child, I can't even imagine. It's so important that we must let ourselves feel. We have to feel what it feels like to be alive. And even when it's hard, even when it's painful. And I know that perhaps, like, obviously that was her doing the best that she could. And probably her family members they couldn't bear to see her the way that she was. So they said, here, take this. But medication, I know that it has a time and a purpose. And I know that there's times where it can be really helpful. In times of grief and loss, I really just encourage us to give ourselves permission to feel and to be with what is, to be with that pain. Even sometimes being with that self-doubt and not shoving it down, not pushing it away. Because as a healer and a spiritual practitioner, what I've noticed in myself and others is that when we shove it down, it freaking creeps and it lingers and it grows and then it manifests. So on this energetic level, it's like when we're shoving down that, we're growing and hurting ourselves in deeper ways that we didn't even realize. It's like we're growing this kind of like yucky, mucky energy around us, and then it's manifesting physically. And it can manifest in many different ways. And that's why we've heard of or we've even seen in like movies like, oh, The Notebook. It's so funny, like even thinking of that. I'm like, oh, that ending scene when they like die in each other's arms. Have you ever seen The Notebook? Oh, and it's like people say they die of a heartbreak. And when that happens, sometimes there's no physical evidence other than it's this energetic, it's this emotional pain that this person loved this other person so much that they couldn't bear to not be around them. Oh, beautiful and deeply sad. I didn't mean to go so deep, but grief is something that comes up, especially during the holiday season, and we must honor and acknowledge it. We must honor and acknowledge ourselves for where we are. And we can honor and acknowledge ourselves, and we can also start moving ourselves towards a new us, towards making a change and a shift. And this is something too that is to ponder, is that our emotional state comes from our thought forms. So our thoughts manifest and they create these emotional states, right? And so just allow yourself permission to notice when we are experiencing that grief, that self-doubt. Where are our thoughts at? Like if it's grief, is it about this person? Is it spiraling? I was the other day actually imagining my friend Brett, who lost his wife Kim on Friday. I was just imagining his mind, and I could imagine just all of those deep, dark thoughts, and then just creating those, just like the deep pain. And what if when we lose someone, we could give so much gratitude for our experiences with this person, for the profound love that we had with this person? Because what is it? Is that Shakespeare? It's like, it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. Right? And remembering that all of the pain that we're experiencing today is a strength that will build us up tomorrow and the day after that. My lovelies, our self-care practice today is to just honor and acknowledge yourself and where you are on your journey. Perhaps if you are battling that self-doubt, perhaps that grief is plaguing you in the holiday season, and to just honor and acknowledge that with a grateful heart. Because no matter what is happening and how sad or hard or chaotic life or the world is that within you, here within this heart that's beating, these lungs that are breathing, this invisible energy, this spirit within you, it's here and it's always giving us messages. But often we turn a shoulder or we are blind to the messages. And remembering your body is always sending you signals. Like your spirit is sending signals to your body. And it's telling you lots of things. And I really encourage you to pay attention, to notice those signals. Notice, like the other night, instead of watching the show, I was like, this was before the reading night. I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to watch a show tonight. I'm so exhausted. This was that day. This was yesterday where I was just, or the day before where I was just feeling, I just had a really big self-doubt day. And I just was like, I'm done with today. I need to just go to sleep. And it was like, all the kids were in bed and it was like 8:15, 8:30. And you know what I did? I just went to bed and I freaking slept. And I let myself just sleep and rest and replenish. And for us in America, like winter is coming. And there's this wonderful book. I'm actually going to look it up for you called Wintering. And it's this book all about how we can embrace winter within ourselves. Maybe I'll make a whole podcast. Wintering book. Let's see who it's from. This book, though, it's called Wintering, The Power of Rest and Retreat in Difficult Times by Catherine May. And my soul sister told me that she was listening to this book again. We listened to it like 2 years ago. And really honoring and acknowledging the change of the seasons. And as we know, like it was fall and fall was changing, and it's still considered fall in where I live in Colorado, in America, until December 21st when winter solstice hits. But it's snowing today. It's been 20 degrees all week. It's like cold and frigid and windy. And knowing that sometimes we have to teach ourselves how to shift with the seasons. And actually have a beautiful soul sister and her daughter who live in Florida. So your wintering might look different in Florida or a tropical part of the world where the climate is temperate and lovely and 70 all of the time. But knowing that this change is happening outside, that means it's got to be happening within us because, right, nature, she's our biggest teacher. She's here to guide us and to show us. And so I am going to end with that in my next podcast. I would love to make it about wintering. I'm going to write that down and how we can really embrace the winter season and how truly that rest and retreat is necessary in difficult times, and that we're not always meant to be on, and we're not always meant to be growing and blooming and blossoming because, right, a flower only blooms in the springtime, and in summer it shows its vibrant colors, and then now they're all wilted away. They're all seated back in the earth, tucked in. Even the trees are showing us that. Most of them all of them here up in Estes Park are vulnerable and naked except for these beautiful pine trees who just hold steady, and they just are. My beautiful soul sisters, I love you. I'm so grateful for you. I honor and acknowledge your journey. And I see it within myself. And again, that self-care practice of just acknowledging where you are, being with what is. And perhaps as we are with what is, what's one thing that we can do to honor and acknowledge that? Maybe it's just putting a hand on a heart, offering yourself that compassion, forgiving yourself. We did a whole self-care practice on forgiveness, but really, have you forgiven yourself? Just again, say that affirmation, I forgive you. I forgive you. It's a practice that we can do over and over and over. It's necessary. I love you. I'm so freaking grateful for you. Exhale, let it go. And please head over to iTunes and leave Awaken You with Shelly Bond a 5-star rating and a review. It means the universe to me. Please share this message with someone that you love. Subscribe if you haven't already. Also, please, I love connecting. If you want to connect with me at Awaken You, Shelly Bond, gmail@gmail.com. If you have any questions or just topics that you would like to explore together. My book, Awaken You, is available on Amazon right now. Just put in Awaken You, Shelly Bond. And also my children's picture book. It's Biddy BS Christmas Magic. It's spelled BIDDYBIAS Christmas Magic, and then put Shelly Bond. And it's so lovely. It's about these monster cousins and the magic of Christmas time, because you know me, I love Christmas. It's I love this time of year. It is just in this wintering within. So I love you. You can find me on Facebook, Shelly Bond, or Instagram, Awaken You, Shelly Bond. I used to be Shelly Lovely, and my brain was going back to that. So I love you. I'm so grateful for you, and I will be back here hanging out with you next week, my beautiful soul sisters. Goodbye. I love you.